Hey family, happy 2020. Here we are, 2020. Can y'all believe that? So wild that we're actually saying that as a real number. Happy 2020. I'm excited to be taking this self-care journey into 2020 strongly. So today's lesson that I went through is called Stress Resilience is a Skill. For those that don't know, this is the 10% Happier Self-Care Journey, and today is January 4th, 2020. We got to come up with some way to express that. That's cool. So anyway, if you're watching live, drop me a line to let me know if you can hear me clearly. And I'm excited about sharing with you all what I learned today and the reflection. So first things first, let me go ahead. Hey, Cuzzo, Steve, let me know if you can hear me clearly, man. I'm just getting a quick mic check. And then secondly, everybody who's watching, look at the notes. Look at the comment section. You'll see the notes, the exact notes that I'm going over here for you to have and follow along. Stress resilience is a skill. You can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf. You can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf. They said that right at the top of the course, and it was like, oh my gosh. I was like, I'm right at home, because that analogy there is something that I've been saying for years. You know, I use it in a lot of different contexts, but mainly when, like, if you think about something like technological advances, right? So for many people, it's like a wave that they can't get with. And I'm always like, well, you know, you can not get with it if you want, but just like a wave, it's coming. So you can either just watch it come crashing down and take you out of here, or you can learn to surf and ride the wave, you know. So you can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf. And today, you know, we're applying that to the concept of stress, right? Stress is a very natural and normal thing. The type of stress that we experience that's really not as favorable. I gotta loosen up this do-rag, y'all. I'm about to squeeze my brains out with this thing. The type of stress that most of us don't really like, it's not really favorable, is the kind of stress where, you know, it's debilitating for us, or it is it's mentally or emotionally hindering. It makes you freeze, or it's overwhelming, you know, or it affects like your physical health in some, you know, really serious way. But besides that, like the initial responses of stress, when the stress hormones are released, when you perk up and you're more aware, when you have the norepinephrine and the cortisol and the adrenaline start to move. Say in a situation where, I don't know, you're getting ready to take a test. Well, that helps you then, because it perks you up. It makes you alert. It makes you be more right in the moment and aware and able to, you know, react really fast. You know, or if you need, somebody left their cell phone, you know, while you were at the bank or something like that, and you were the person behind them, and you realized it, and they walked off, and you say, hold on a second, and then you grabbed the cell phone, your heart started racing, adrenaline moving, you were running, and you caught the person. Well, that wasn't bad stress, but that was stress though. It's just that it wasn't, you know, the bad kind. So it's normal, is what I'm saying. Stress is a very normal part of life. I don't really get with any philosophies that talk about stress or fear as something that is unrealistic or something that we shouldn't have. because it's just a natural part of life. It's evolution. It's how we're talking today. Because of being able to survive. So what we're trying to do is to learn how to ride the wave of stress. Learn how to, not allow it to be debilitating. That's what I'm learning every day in my journey. The second thing I wrote is, it's called practice for a reason. The changes take place physiologically, mentally, and emotionally over time. It takes an ongoing, sustained practice to develop this resiliency. And I think that's so important. To say, right now, I have a meditation practice. And to say it that way and to think of it as a practice, first of all, it allows me to go easy on myself when I don't get it right, or when I'm not, when I miss a day, or when I'm not as focused on my practice. Y'all gonna have to excuse me, I gotta blow my nose. So, it allows you to be gentle with yourself if you think about it as a practice. That's the first thing. Second thing is, you're automatically in the mindset that this is not a one-time thing. This is not something that I'm going to do for a day or a couple days or a week, and then after that, I'm good. Stress, as we'll talk about later on, is something that is just a part of the duration of your life. Stress management is, it's a practice that's a part of the duration of your life. So it's called practice for a reason. And to be honest, I even think about my own situation. In the last 3 or 4 weeks, some different symptoms I was dealing with in my body, some different ailments, I haven't experienced, especially in the exacerbated way that I did before. I'm always a peaceful guy, but I've been even more just at peace. But the biggest thing is I haven't been experiencing the physical ailments and manifestations of that stress, anxiety, and depression cause with having this practice. And it took time. It didn't happen the first day. I actually been really surprised. Even though I'm aware of this is how things work, but it still was really interesting. Just my back, and a lot of y'all have been following me. I've been talking about my lower back was giving me some troubles, and it's it's nowhere near what it was before. And I realized that in addition to what I may be dealing with as far as just some chronic lower back kind of stuff, the anxiety, the stress, those kind of things exacerbated. I remember one day in particular when I knew, I realized I was doing a particular job, I was doing a gig that I really did not want to do, but I was doing it for the money, because you got to do what you got to do sometimes. But my whole relationship, even with that, with doing what you got to do, is reframing. I still believe that. It's funny though. Now I'm applying it to the other side. So instead of doing what you got to do from the perspective of putting yourself in harm's way or in anxiety-producing situations in order to make a living, it's the other way, which is you got to do what you got to do by not putting yourself in that place and protecting yourself and your emotions and your body and your mentality at all costs. So it's called practice for a reason, and I've just been really appreciative over these past 3 or 4 weeks at how this practice for me has been unfolding, and it's just been benefiting my life so much. Y'all can hear I'm coming down with the sniffles a little bit. So the changes take place over time, and it takes an ongoing, sustained practice to develop this resiliency. Because that's the thing you're really developing, and that really actually hits at my core principle in life, which really brought me to the place of secular humanism, which is that the goal is to practice acceptance above expectation. You know, with the different inevitables of life, there are times and situations where no matter how much we want them to be different, no matter how much we pray or all these things, like, they don't happen, and it's because it's life. Certain things just flow in a certain way. So the thing is to practice acceptance, because when you practice acceptance, like how this course, they've been saying it over and over and over, and I've been thinking about it for years. It allows you to keep settling in more and more and more and more to the inevitables, or to the situation or the scenario or the feelings or whatever. But most of our philosophies have taught us that settling in this way is actually giving into it and being defeated by it. That's really the issue. Most of our philosophies, our religious and our spiritual paths, have taught us that settling into the things we have to accept in life, like death or pain or stress and these kind of things, is actually being defeated by it. And that the goal is to take another kind of theological, philosophical approach to be able to use optimism and positivity and the concept of expectation in order to focus on a better reality. The thing is, that's extremely helpful, right? And that's just a normal thing in life. You don't even need a spiritual or religious path for that. But that's extremely, extremely helpful. Except for when it's not. And that's the thing. It's extremely helpful, except for when it's not. And the thing I realize most is that we don't pay attention to the times when it's not helpful. We only pay attention to the times when it is helpful, because it just feels better, and we, life is tough. We don't want to deal with the inevitables. It's very tough, I empathize with it because all of us go through it. But I realize, though, that we're missing out on a big part of really teaching ourselves how to live in peace and die in peace, which is practicing acceptance above expectation. I'm going to be talking about this forever, like many times, because I think it's probably the most important thing to me in life, as far as what I feel my contribution is to humanity, through my words and through my expression and my example. Okay, moving on. The practices to stress better, and I like how they call this course Stress Better instead of like Get Rid of Your Stress. It made it more practical and more realistic. The practices to stress better are: number 1, pause. Number 2, tune into your body. Number 3, reframe your relationship with stress. Number 4, open up to difficult emotions. Number 5, practice self-compassion and compassion for others. Those are 5 practices that they offered in this session and in this course in general. So I'm going to go back through those and just kind of say 1 or 2 things added to it. So the practices to stress better are: number 1, pause. Pausing can't be overstated. When I was taking a course called Effortless Mastery, it was for this kind of practice, but it was applied to music. And one of the things that the teacher had you to do in the course, it's by Kenny Warner, if anybody's interested, Effortless Mastery. What he had you to do was, in the middle of everything he was teaching you to do and to focus on, you had to literally out of nowhere just stop. Just stop, take your hands off your instrument, and just sit in like silence and don't do anything. Just completely detached from what you were doing. Be totally engaged and then totally detached. And then after that, then go right back to like take a few minutes to do that. Pausing, and I realized it then when I experienced pausing, allows you to get out of your head for a second, to take a step back. If you take a deep breath with it, I forgot to do that too. I was wanting to do that at the beginning. We'll do it at the end. But if you pause for a second, just detach from whatever you're in the midst of, just enough for you to get out of your head and take a deep breath or a couple deep breaths. I say 3 to be exact, just because it's a nice little pattern kind of deal. That alone is self-care and will make the difference. That'll stop you from arguing or cursing someone out. It'll stop you from having an anxiety attack. It'll stop you from doing something impulsive that you regret later. So number 1, pause. Number 2, tune into your body. So after pausing, they were saying, like, to just do a scan of your body, see how this is showing up in your body. Because a lot of times we're so in our heads, we don't even realize what's happening in our body until it's screaming at us, And sometimes tuning into your body allows you to focus on certain parts of your body to release the tension, to relax, to de-escalate. So that's so important, to just tune into your body and see how you're feeling. You could be tensing up because you're stressed and not realize it, and that be causing you even more stress. But when you relax, then, Number 3, reframe your relationship with stress. That's important because we're talking about change of perspective. Hey, Harry. Hey, Russell. If y'all can, someone drop me a line and let me know if you can actually hear me clearly. Hey, Luis. Hey, Isaiah. Thank you all for watching. Shamel. Reframe your relationship with stress. Now we're talking about changing the mind, changing the perspective. If you can see stress as a way to practice, as a way to, he's like, all right, so boom, okay, so I get the opportunity to give myself a few minutes of self-care. If you see it from that positive perspective, then everything changes. You can actually it can actually happen because you're out of your own way and you're open. Speaking of open, number 4 is open up to difficult emotions. Whatever you resist persists. So trying to run away from the emotions is just not the way. You're not going to be able to deal with it. You have to be able to open up to them. And this opening is when we get to talking about acceptance again. This really is acceptance again applied. Number 5, practice self-compassion and compassion for others. So, of course, having compassion for yourself first allows you to de-escalate. And then thinking about others and what they're going through. I tell you, I said this a couple years ago in a relationship that I was in. I said this to my partner as we got to a place where I realized that we were on different paths. And so, it made sense for us to be appreciative of our season and be appreciative of where we took each other from point A to point B. And, from there, like, it's just like other things in life, times change, seasons change. But if you grew and you learned something from it, I don't see anything as a failure in that regard. But I remember during that time, as it was a tough emotional time and anxiety and stress producing, I realized the thing that was keeping me well in the midst of it and not completely stressed out by it was how much empathy and compassion I had for us both as just 2 individuals moving through the journey, doing the best that we could. Myself, of course, because I knew what I was feeling, so I was able to have compassion with what I was going through and having compassion for her as well. But us together allow me to not get upset at her about things that I could have gotten upset about because I had so much empathy for what she was going through and for us together, and then for myself as well. And so I remember even offering that and saying, I think that if you have more empathy, if you're able to just take a step back and have compassion for us both, and you might not be as upset, you might not, it might actually help. And I remember just realizing that then. So yes, practicing self-compassion and compassion for others this is the 5th of these practices that completes this equation. Managing stress is the work of a lifetime because stress is a natural part of life. You will get better over time. Use curiosity to consider how stress shows up for you. here's a question. How do you feel? How do you typically deal with it? And then without judgment, ask yourself, do these work? Do these ways I've been dealing with it, these habits, these mechanisms, do they work? Will they help me out over time in the long run? That's really important because, this level of like self-reflection. Hey Ashley, thanks for hanging out. Let me know if you all can hear me clearly. This kind of reflection process really helps. First of all, because you get out of your head. Second of all, because you're able to start being like honest with yourself in the moment. And if you're not applying self-judgment, then you'll feel okay with being honest even with yourself. It's so interesting what goes on up here. Like, sometimes we're not even honest with ourselves because we're afraid of our own self-judgment. It's literally all here. So asking these questions allow you to be honest about like how you feel it and what you do with it, how you respond in relationship to it. That way you can weed out the things that's not really helping you. And not just mindlessly do them because they're impulsive and and you flow that way out of habit. Consider and meditate on how you would like to respond to stress. That's the second one. First, meditate on how you do, and then secondly, how would you like to respond? And then here's 6 points. Imagine yourself staying connected to your body during stressful times. Just take the time to imagine that. In fact, let's do this way. If you're watching this video and if you are in a place where you can close your eyes, not if you're driving, of course, but if you can close your eyes, just kind of close your eyes and breathe. In fact, let's do this here. I've been wanting to do this. Let's take 20 seconds to just take 3 deep breaths, and then we'll do this practice. So, along with the music, like right in rhythm, take a deep breath in and out. Deep breath in and out. And one more deep breath in and out. Now keep your eyes closed if you already have your eyes closed, and just meditate on these couple points. So number 1, imagine yourself staying connected to your body during stressful times. Like, even if you can't do it, just take the time to imagine yourself. Imagine yourself monitoring the sensations that you feel in your body. Can you make the intention of practicing deep belly breathing when stress arises? Set a goal to make space for whatever is happening, even if it's uncomfortable, knowing that you're building your capacity in doing so. Imagine cultivating a habit of practicing curiosity about your stressing as opposed to judgment. And lastly, can you make the intention to open to difficult emotions when stress arises? You are building emotional resiliency when doing so. And you can end that with taking a deep breath in and out. So these are 6 points that are really important, I find, especially as I was going through it. Because you're allowing yourself to step back, and that's the piece. Being able to imagine yourself moving through your stress in this way inevitably builds the resiliency to do so. You know, the two go hand in hand. So, one other thing I wanted to talk about too, say hello, is I want to make sure I want to read any comments that anyone has dropped. Hey, Coco. Hey, Lester. Thank you all for watching. Please drop any comments so I can read them before I finish this stream. If you have any thoughts about what's said here. One thing I want to talk about real quickly was deep belly breathing. So it's something that I'm going to be studying more closely and practicing. I'm already practicing, but studying more closely to really learn the ins and outs so that I can offer it as well to others. But the one simple and I would say probably most significant thing about it, even though it's simple, is that first of all, you know, we don't usually take deep breaths. That's one thing I learned about my own life. There are a lot of times when we're just moving, and if you pay attention to your breathing, it's very shallow, except for when you're just out of breath, you know, because if you're not in shape or something like that, and you're like, you know, running or doing some other kind of thing. But other than that, like, we breathe very shallow a lot of times. Like, I realize we actually have to be intentional and tell ourselves to take a deep breath. And now I just do it periodically throughout my day. I just literally check in with my breathing, and I'll just take 10 or 15 seconds, even if I'm not stressed, to just take deep breaths. And like, then I realized that in the moment that there's a low hum of stress that I may have been dealing with and just didn't even realize it because I just got so used to that flow. You take a deep breath and your whole body naturally relaxes. My friend was telling me the other day that when you exhale, it actually slows your heart rate down. So your body literally relaxes. And then all of a sudden you realize, like, wow, I wasn't as relaxed as I thought I was. So that's the first thing, like just taking that time. But the thing I'm learning about deep belly breathing is that as opposed to breathing in where you suck your stomach in like we normally do, you actually breathe in and allow it to expand your belly as opposed to inhale. And then when you exhale, then you draw your navel in. That was like completely different than, you know, what I've been used to as far as breathing. So that's like I guess you could say a little tip. You know, as I study it more closely, I'm actually going to do whole live streams where I just demonstrate and talk about the ins and outs of it. But for right now, just think about it that way. When you breathe in, you're actually expanding your stomach as opposed to breathing in and pulling it in. You're doing it the opposite. And when you exhale, you actually want to bring your navel in. So, all right, last but not least, continue to set goals. Be gentle with yourself in the process. Appreciate the small successes and steps forward. And thank yourself regularly for taking the time to put your self-care first. I've stated it before, but I'll probably do it almost at the end of every live stream. One of the biggest lessons I've learned in this self-care journey is that half of the relief that you experience comes from like literally being grateful to yourself in the moment and having gratitude that you actually took a few seconds, whether it's 20 seconds to breathe or whether it's 20 minutes to meditate, you know, that you took the opportunity to invest in your self-care, and that literally makes you feel better. It does everything. So don't forget to do that. This is self-care. And I know it's cliche. I know the whole idea of like love yourself is cliche and all, but yeah, when you start practicing it in this way, then you start realizing like, oh, okay, there's like levels to this thing as far as self-love and self-care. And unless you set aside the time to make it intentional, chances are you aren't actually loving yourself as much as you could. You might not be loving yourself at all. Like, it's just something I'm realizing as I've set aside the time. You know, self-care, so important. So that's about it, y'all. Thank you so much for watching. Hey to everybody here. Hey Kyra. Hey Jewel. Last but not least, the music that you've been hearing in the background is from my new meditation for 2020. To it yet, please check it out. Like I at this point I really just want feedback for like how you experience it. It's called Breathe Deeply, and it's on YouTube on my channel Aaron Hill TV. I also paste the link here in the description. I mean in the comment section too, if you all want to come back and look at it. And Breathe Deeply is the guided meditation version of it, where you hear my voice, and then the one we've been listening to here, which is the piano composition that I wrote and put behind the meditation, but this is just the music by itself. This is called Breath of Life Piano Meditation. So if you've enjoyed that, go grab it on Spotify or Apple Music. And last but not least, in continuing with this self-care journey and this piano meditation and all this kind of stuff, on January 24th, I'm going to be doing a solo piano meditation concert. I'm excited about it because I've done a million gigs. I've done a million gigs playing solo piano, but this will be my first concert where I literally do a show just around solo piano and this kind of music, solo piano meditation. I'm actually going to do a guided meditation and everything. Like, I think it's going to be an experience that just nobody's experienced before, because I've never seen it, and I haven't seen everything, but I don't think it's like out there like that. And even if it is, it's not enough of this kind of expression. So I can't express how excited in words I am about that. That's January 24th. It's going to be at 7:30 p.m. at Ondi Music, which is 409 Charles Street. It's a recital hall right downtown in Baltimore. Intimate setting. It's only going to be about like $10 tickets. Like, it's going to be really simple. But I really want you to join me for that, because 2020, I'm saying, is the year of clear vision. And the only way you're going to have clear vision is to have a clear mind. You can't have a clear vision with a cluttered mind. Thank you so much, Coco. I appreciate you. Michael Orr, thanks so much for watching. So 2020 is the year of clear vision, and I'm driving full force, full speed in the direction of this kind of work, my expression of this kind of work that's contributed to the field, or my contribution to the field of health and wellness and self-care. So yeah, I think that's about it. Thank you all so much for joining me. Jump on back with me, if you will, in 10 minutes. I'll be doing the word of the day. And happy 2020 to all those I haven't had the opportunity personally to say Happy New Year to. All right, I'll see you on a few. Peace, and as always, be well.